Hi, I'm Brady Gaster, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Windows Azure websites. I work for Microsoft on the Windows Azure Evangelism team, and my focus is Windows Azure websites, specifically around .NET development. So that's kind of where I'll be focusing most of my attention today, is working with Windows Azure websites from the perspective of a ASP.NET developer. Want to point out, however, that Windows Azure Websites has support for more than just .NET. We support ASP. Obviously, we support ASP.NET, Web Forms, MVC, Web API, and all that. But we also support PHP and Node.js. And to give you a quick demonstration of those, I've got a simple demo here that I like to call the Hello All Worlds or Hello All Frameworks demo. You'll see that in this folder, Demo 1, I've got an ASP file. If I open that up in Sublime Text, you'll see that it's just kind of a basic response.write, just showing you Hello World message. If I show you the same thing in ASP.NET, you'll see that I have a Web Forms label on here. And I want to point out that in the bin folder, you'll see that I've got a bunch of DLLs. One of those DLLs is actually the compiled form of all the code behind in this project. And basically, this guy will be setting the text property of this label to Hello World. I've got a CS HTML file. You probably know that as web pages, ASP.NET web pages, and I'm just using some Razor syntax. Also want to point out that I've got a static HTML file. Nothing too special about that. Just hello world in static HTML. And then I've got a JS file here. Take a look at that. You'll see that that's Node.js server-side JavaScript functionality, writing out hello world to the browser. And then we've got hello.php, where we echo a message to the user using PHP syntax. Also want to point out that I've got a Web API sample, but that lives in the, that's compiled, and I'll be doing some stuff with MVC as well. So I just want to point out that we do have support for all that stuff baked in directly right out of the box with every single website. So what I'll do real quickly is log into the portal. I'll log in using my demo account. You'll see that it's an empty account. Don't have any sites set up or anything. What we're going to do first, go ahead and go and create a new website. I'm just going to do a quick create, and we'll call this site Hello All Frameworks. Go ahead and click create website. And this is actually going to go out and create a site for us in my account that we'll be able to access pretty quickly. Go ahead and close that down, and I'm going to show you how to do deployment using FTP first. So what I'm going to do is copy this FTP host name to my clipboard, and I'm going to open up FileZilla. It's my favorite FTP program. If you have your own, you can use that. Pretty much every FTP program will work. No real special requirement there. I'm going to paste in my domain here. I'm also going to copy out my deployment user. And the way you can set that up is just by clicking this Reset Deployment Credentials, and you can give it a username and a password. I've already created a username and a password, so I'm not going to do that for now. I'm going to paste in my username into FileZilla, enter in my password. And now we're just FTPing up to Windows Azure Websites directly into that particular site's folder. Maybe. There we go. Okay. I want to show you the structure of any website. You'll see that we've got a log files folder and we've got a site folder. All I'll do real quick is I'll just go into that log files folder, and you see that I've got nothing there. What I'm going to do is go back into here to configure, and I'll show you another configuration demo a little bit later in this talk, but real quickly I'm going to turn on all the different features of logging. A web server logging, which is going to be your basic IIS logs, detailed error message, which will be all your failed requests, and then turn on failed request tracing to show you detailed error statements whenever something blows up. And I'm going to go ahead and refresh the site a few times, and you'll see that we've got a just a placeholder page out there for us. And what I'll do now is I'll go back into FileZilla, go to the log files folder and hit refresh, and we don't have anything since we're not hitting any actual files yet, but we'll have some in a second to take a look at. And you see that I've got the www root folder. So in your root you'll have log files and site, and then you'll have www root, and that's where you'll actually upload everything. Well, in that folder right now I've got the default page, so I'm going to delete that page because I've got my own content that I'm going to put in there. I'm going to go ahead and do a Control A here. I'm going to drag and drop all these files through FileZilla into the www root folder. Once those files all get uploaded, we'll be ready to go. You'll see that those files are actually uploading right now to my Windows Azure website through FTP, and take just a second for everything to get uploaded. There we go. Now that those are all uploaded, I'm going to go back over here to my account. I have to log in again. I'm having session problems today. Sorry about that. Probably on the user error end of things. What I'll do here is I'll just click Browse. You'll see that we're going to go to your standard default MVC home / index view here. So we've got this, and it's really just a list of static links. The first one's going to be our static HTML file. Obviously that'll work. Classic ASP. So if you have a classic ASP app and you've been wondering what to do with it, you can host it on Windows Azure. If you want to migrate that ASP to ASP.NET while you're developing, you can do that as well. So we've got a hello.aspx page here. Now I'll go ahead and open the same thing up in Razor. So there's our web pages. This is when things should get pretty interesting. Go ahead and see it in node.js. You'll see that that's working just fine. And obviously go ahead and click the PHP and you'll see that that works as well. Now this web API guy right here, if I click that, it's going to ask me if I want to open the file, hello world API.json. I'm fine with that, so I'm going to go ahead and click open. You'll see that that's just a string being echoed out from web API. So you'll see that in one website, without doing any configuration, turning any knobs, or doing anything special, we've got support for all the pretty much major web development frameworks. I can say that we're listening to the community. We've heard that there are other development frameworks that you want out there, and we're going to be adding more in the future. So if there's anything that you need and don't currently have, feel free to ask for it, and we'll do what we can to accommodate your web development framework needs. You'll see out of the gate you've got support for pretty much all the major ones, and I'm going to go ahead and move along now to the next demo. This next demo, we've already talked about the different frameworks that are supported by Windows Azure websites. In this next segment, we're going to talk about the different deployment methods that are supported by Windows Azure websites. This first one, you saw something done with FTP, so we actually created a simple site, uploaded it using FTP, favorite FTP client. Next thing we're going to talk about is going to be web deploy, and then we'll move on from there, and I'll show you how to do deployment using Git or deployment using TFS. I'm going to go ahead and keep on trucking. First demo on deployment specifics is going to be around web deploy. So what I'll do here is I'm going to go back out to the portal. I'm going to go up and I'm going to click New Website, and I'll do Create with Database. And I'll call this site My Notes. So I've got a Create New SQL Database selected, and I'll call this My Notes DB. It says use existing server or a new SQL server. I don't mind creating a new one, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new SQL server. It's going to ask me for a login name, and I'll just call this My Notes User and give it a password. Okay. Now you don't need to remember that stuff. What I want to point out right here is that this checkbox is checked. Allow Windows Azure Services to access the server. What that means is that when we create this database, we know that we want to access that database from a Windows Azure website. That Windows Azure website is obviously going to have a TCP IP address. What we're going to do is we're going to basically tell the SQL Server when we create it to allow incoming connections from a particular IP address or a range of IP addresses, specifically those associated with this particular website or from Windows Azure. The idea being that we want to allow access to our SQL Server database server from our Windows Azure website or any of the services that we've got running in Windows Azure. We weren't to enable that. The applications that we write wouldn't be able to access the database. And what I'll point out real quickly, I want to click on My Note. Forgot the S. Click on My Note real quick, and you'll see that we've got a tab over here called Linked Resources. And if I click on that, you're going to see that we have a database in there. That's the database that we just created called MyNotesDB. And that's a SQL database. The idea behind this will become a little bit evident as we actually write some code. But basically what will happen is this website will be linked to a SQL Server database running on Windows Azure. So that if I were to delete my website, if I were to go back over here to websites and select My Note, click the delete button, when you do this, you're going to see delete confirmation, and our database is going to be available right here. So I can check that box and click the OK button, and what will happen is that we'll actually delete that Windows Azure website, all the code that's out there. And I know that I'm really not going to have any need for this database because I don't have the application that uses the database anymore. So I'm going to give the option to actually delete that database when I delete the site. That way we kind of clean out our account and don't have anything extraneous sitting around that we're not using. That's not the only reason for linked resources though. As you'll see in a minute once we get into the Web Deploy demo, there's some pretty good stuff that you can do with a Web Deploy to make your life a lot easier once you're doing deployment. And we'll get into that in just a second. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new MVC project, MVC4 project, and I'll just call it My Notes. And I'll actually remember to put the S on the end this time. And go ahead and click OK. And I'm just creating a basic ASP.NET MVC site. And this MVC site is actually going to use Entity Framework scaffolding and migrations to set up the database schema, get everything up to snuff, and to allow us to do database edits. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're actually going to do code first here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a class. And my class is going to be a Note class. And I want to add a couple of simple properties to that guy. ID, string text, and my windows have gotten a little bit messed up today, so I'm going to move this Solution Explorer over here. You'll see that I've got my Note class created. I'm not going to really have to do a whole bunch to it, but right click my controllers, and now I'm going to scaffold a MVC controller with read-write actions and views using Entity Framework. So we'll call this the Notes controller, and it's going to ask us which model we want to base everything on. I'm going to select my Note model from there, and now it's asking me for a data context class. I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. I'll click New, and you'll see that there's mynotes.models.myNotesContext. Fine with that, so I'll click OK there. Go ahead and click Add. What that's going to do is it's going to create a new controller and a set of views that go along with that controller that use Entity Framework to do all the scaffolding. So you'll see here, if I were to scroll down, this is our controller, and it's got a context here, My Notes context, which has been created right here in the models folder. That's just a DB context class using Entity Framework. You'll see that I've got details, create, and this is the HTTP post method that I'll post a note and it'll actually create that note in the database for us. Here's edit. I can make changes to a note. And there's the post version of the edit method. There's delete, etc., etc. I could have done the same thing if I'd have just wanted to build a API controller. Could actually go in here and go on a new controller and select API controller with read-write actions using Entity Framework, but we just want to create a simple GUI right now, so I won't do that at this point. Now that we've got our model created, what I'm going to do in our context created, I'm going to go down here to the Package Manager console, and this pipeline not run because a pipeline is already running error. That's something that the team knows about. That's a bug in the RC release. We know that it's there, and we're going to repair that before we actually release Visual Studio 2012. Just want to point that out. If you're using RC and you've seen that, it'll be gone soon. So right now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do Enable Migrations. Hit Tab there to do autocomplete. I'm going to enable Entity Framework Migrations in this project. And you'll see that I've now got a migrations folder, and in that folder I've got a configuration class, and that configuration class really just kind of sets up your database. Now you've got a seed method in there, and what I'll do is I'm just going to seed the database with some data so that we know it's working. So we'll say notes.add or update. I'm going to pass in a lambda here, and the property that we're going to key off of is going to be text, and that's not the ID property, that's just the property that we're going to look at whenever a new node is created. So if I have a node in there called pickup laundry, and I create another note called pickup laundry, I'm just going to make a change to the existing note, not actually have two notes called pickup laundry. Wouldn't want to have to do that task twice. So and now I'm going to pass in a array of notes. So I'll go ahead and import my namespace here and create a couple of basic notes. I like that example we talked about before, so I'll just go ahead and stick with that theme. Pick up laundry, different errands that I'm going to have to do on the way home. Now let's say text pick up dinner. So got a couple of notes created, things I've got to do on the way home. Go ahead and close that down. And I want to go back here and say add migration. I've got to give it a name, added seed data. And go ahead and click enter. And what you'll see is that our second migrations file is going to get created. It's going to have an up and a down method, basically just to create our table that corresponds with our note model. And if we were to execute the down functionality, we just drop that table. So if I were to actually add properties to note, I could add migrations, and basically it would know what to do as I move along. What I'm going to do here is just go in and say automatic migrations enabled equal to true. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the portal, and I'm going to click on my note link here. I'm going to click the download publish profile. I'm going to download mynote.azurewebsites.net.publish settings. I'm going to put that in my downloads folder. And now I'm going to go back into my site here, and you'll see that I haven't copied and pasted any connection strings, haven't done anything weird. All I've done is create the site and create the code for the site. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and click publish, and this is when we'll really see where the Power Web Deploy comes in. Click the next button here, and you'll see that there are two connections. That's because whenever you create a project, it puts in this default connection string. I'm going to uncheck that box because I'm not going to use that, because I know I'm going to use this my notes context. Now if I click this down arrow right here, you're going to see that I have this connection string, and that actually got copied over from the Web Deploy publish settings. The idea being, remember this linked resources guy up here, and I've got a database linked. If you've got a website that has a database link to it, whenever you go into your site's dashboard and you do a download publish profile, the file that you download is basically an XML file, and that XML file will contain not only the site deployment information, but since you've got a database associated with that site, it makes the assumption, oh, you probably want to deploy your database too, and you're probably using something like Code First Migrations. So I'm going to go ahead and put the connection string into that file for you, so you don't have to worry about copying and pasting it, doing all this other stuff. It's just going to go ahead and bring it all in for you. That's the nice thing about Web Deploy, is that it makes it super easy. Go ahead and click publish here. And what that'll do is that'll actually deploy all the files out to Windows Azure Websites, put all those files out of my site, and when the site runs for the first time, the Entity Framework migrations are actually going to run, and you'll see that what I've got here is a situation where I've not configured my default controller. I'm actually going to close that browser because I'm kind of a control freak with that sort of thing. I'm going to go into my route config over here. I'm going to change this to note, or notes, since that's the name of my controller. Make sure, go ahead and do a compilation there. And what I'll do here, this actually is kind of a good demo fail, because what it'll do is it'll give us the ability to see what will happen if I do a publish again. You'll see here that I'm going to jump right into the preview. I'll click start preview here. I didn't do that before because I knew I'd be deploying everything. And in this particular case, you're going to see that I'm really only going to be deploying 2 files. When you do Web Deploy against Windows Azure Websites, it'll actually go out and do a def and figure out what you need to deploy that's not already there. So it'll actually figure out what files have changed, and you'll only deploy the def of those files. In this case, I only had to deploy one DLL, site restarts, and we should have some data. So there's our seed data, and that's actually been created directly in our database. Just to show you that it's not smoke and mirrors and static stuff, I'll create another demo, note here, and we'll call it do the demo. I'm going to create that note in a different example. You'll see I've got do the demo here. If I wanted to create it, make the demo work. Go ahead and click save, and you'll see that we've got that demo already in there. If I delete it, it's going to show me the default confirmation page. Yes, I'm sure I want to delete it, and there it goes. So that's actually running against the database, running out in Windows Azure SQL databases, running right here. If I were to actually click on the manage and go into the online SQL tools, I would actually see the data that I seeded in that entity framework migration step. Data is already out there in the database, so that's all good. So that's how you do deployment to Windows Azure websites using WebDeploy. Now, the next demo that we're going to talk about, the next deployment strategy that we're going to discuss in here is one that's definitely become popular in the last couple years, and that is Git. So we're going to talk a little bit about Git deployment and how Git is a supported deployment mechanism of Windows Azure websites. And I'm kind of going to do two demos in one here because I'm going to show you how to do Git deployment kind of basically, and then I'm going to actually kind of take a next step and show you how to do Git deployment using the Node.js CLI tools. But first I'll show you a pretty dirt simple example of how you can do a Git deployment. I'll just create a new website here. I'll do another quick create, and we'll call this Git Demo 01 because I'm going to do two probably. I'll click OK there, and that'll go ahead and create our website, Git Demo 01. Now what I'll do is I'll click on that to go into the site's dashboard, and I'll go over here to set up Git Publishing, which is in the quick glance menu section. Go ahead and click Set up Git Publishing. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a Git repository in Windows Azure to which you can publish files. You can push files up into your repository. And what will actually happen when you do that is that those files will be deployed to your website. So as you push files into your Git repo, it'll do deployments actively for you. Just as our Git repo is ready, go ahead and close our area there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL out of the window. And what it'll do in this deployment window is it'll actually give you a link to download Git if you don't already have a client installed on your computer. Kind of show you some steps that you can walk through to initialize your Git repo and push stuff up to it, and then actually how you can do a push into it. So what I'll do here is go back to my website's menu and show you this real quick. What I'm going to do is I use PowerShell pretty much all the time, and I have actually got the when I did my Git install, I checked the second box, and the purpose of that box is to actually let you access the Git commands directly from the command prompt rather than only be able to access it through the bash shell. So just do want to point out that I'm not using bash here. I'm using Windows PowerShell to do all my Git stuff. And I'm a huge fan of the Git Posh tools. If you haven't already used that, that'll actually show you relevant information about your local Git repository in PowerShell. It'll show you like you have however many files that you have to check in, how many files you deleted, that sort of thing. It just kind of changes this area right here to kind of show you that. I don't have that installed globally, so we won't be able to see that during this demo, but I do want to point out that if you're a PowerShell fan, you definitely want to check out the Git Posh extensions for PowerShell, because that'll give you colorized functionality in PowerShell specific to Git. So what you'll see right here, I've got this guy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in git clone. I've copied that git demo01.git URL to my clipboard, and I'm just going to paste that in and hit enter. And if everything goes smoothly, it should ask you for my password. Go ahead and enter in my deployment user password here, and it says you have cloned an empty repository. I'm aware of that. I know that there's nothing in there, but what I want to do is I'm going to cd into my Git Demo 01 folder, do a clear screen, do a dir. You'll see that there's actually nothing in that folder right now. And what I'll do next is open up Sublime, just because I want to make a couple of quick HTML changes real quick. And what I'll actually do here is to open up a recent file that I've messed with from the first demo, and that file lives right here, the hello.html file. And I'm going to save that file, go over here to my Git demo 01 folder. I'm going to save that file right here as index.html. Save that real quick. So we've got a simple file right out there. And what I'll do now, just do a dir, make sure I did put it in the right spot. So there's our file. I'll do a git add everything, git commit initial file creation. And before I push that back up to my repository, I'm going to go over here to my deployments tab in the portal. You'll see that it's waiting for me to do something. So it knows that I haven't done any deployments yet. That's perfectly fine, because we're going to do a deployment now together. So what I'll do here is I'll say git push origin master. You could say git push Azure master, as we'll see in a moment using the node tools. And I'll probably ask me for my password again here. Enter my password. And if you pay attention to the portal window right here, as soon as that push actually completes, look what happens. It's going to go ahead and tell us, hey, you've already got an active deployment. You're already ready to go. If I click the browse button, I'm going to open up index.html, and there's a hello world from the static file. Alright, so we don't like the fact that that says static file, so let's go ahead and delete that. Go ahead and take that string out, and go ahead and save it. And now I'll go back into my PowerShell prompt here. I'm basically going to do the same thing again. Git add, git commit -m, change the welcome message. And just because I like to see it update, I'm going to go back so that I can actually see the deployment screen at the same time that I see my Git window. I'm going to do another push origin master. And it should ask me for my password one more time. Alright, and you'll see that we're going to have a second deployment here in just a moment. There we go. So there's our active deployment. If I go back over to my index page and refresh it, you'll see that there's our there's a change. So that's good. It's good news. Now, if I were to want to change that one more time, I could say hello world from Windows Azure websites. And I'll go ahead and say that. Save it real quick. And sorry to be redundant, but I'll go ahead and add this one more time. Change the welcome message, and we'll do a git push origin master one more time. The reason I want to show you this is because you'll see that we have those 3 different deployments, just to show you that our deployment's hot. We got hello world from Windows Azure websites, and that's all well and good. So this was the one where we actually had the static file in parentheses. This is one where we just said a plain old hello world. This is the one where we say hello world from Windows Azure websites. I just click this one, and you'll see that if I actually click on the individual deployments, that I can select different deployments. And when I do, this redeploy shows up. So let's say that your boss comes over and they say, hey, you know, we're really happy that you said hello from Windows Azure websites and all that, but we want you to just say hello world. We think the community would like that better. Not sure why they would, but we just think they would. So we want you to switch it back to just say hello world. We don't offend anybody. Go ahead and click yes there. And it'll say that our active deployment is the second one. We go back out here and it just says hello world, as expected. And then management says, actually, we really like being associated with Windows Azure websites. We want to let everybody know that we are. If you could go ahead and redeploy that last one that you've done, that's cool. We want to go ahead and retain all your hard work. And if I hit F5, you'll see there's hello world from Windows Azure websites. I'll show you that so that you can see how you can actually select different deployments when you're using Git deployment, and you can actually go back in time. If for whatever reason you've done something wrong, your boss comes over, oh no, something's happened. It's very easy for you to back up to a particular point in time and keep on going. So that's a nice little feature. Now, as I pointed out a minute ago, you can also use Git in conjunction with the Node.js CLI tools. Just so you know what those are. Hanselman actually blogged about those a couple weeks back, and that really is for all the people in the audience who are command line junkies like myself. This will actually give you the ability to do pretty much anything in Azure websites that you need to manage sites or do anything. This will give you the ability to do that directly from the command line, which is pretty nice. So I've got Node.js installed on my computer, and I've done what we call an npm install Azure. If you do that, you would actually install the Azure npm module for Node. But I've already done that, so I can actually just go in at any time I want and just type in Azure-H. This is one of the things that you may have seen on Hanselman's blog. We have nice, pretty ASCII art for Azure ASCII art with the clouds behind them. And this will show you all the different commands that you have at your disposal from the Node.js command prompt. Nice thing about this, as I pointed out before, is you'll be able to use these tools from any computer that supports Node.js. I have a colleague on my team, Corey Fowler, who's big in the PHP and open source web development community, and he uses a Mac on a pretty regular basis. And he has these tools installed directly on his Mac. He's also got them installed on Windows, and I've seen people use them on Linux as well. So you can actually do all this stuff pretty much on any platforms. You can actually deploy your website code to Windows Azure from your Mac or from pretty much any other machine that supports Node.js, which I think is pretty much everybody. What I'll do real quick is I'm going to do a clear screen here, and one of the commands you may have seen on there was Azure Site. And if I were to do -H here, it's going to show us all the different things that we can do. So what I'll do first is Azure Site List. So I want to list all my sites. I'll do Azure Site List. Oh, it says no account information found. You need to import your credentials using Azure Account Import. Now before you do that, I just want to point this out, you would do Azure Account Download. And when you do that, it's actually going to send you out to a Azure Account Download. It's actually going to send you out to a web page where you're going to download sort of the published settings profile for your whole account, your whole Microsoft Windows Azure account. So you'll be able to actually deploy stuff back and forth using your published settings. So that's kind of nice. I've already done that. So what I'm going to do here is say Azure, if I can spell it right, Azure Account Import, and I've saved that onto my desktop. So I'm going to say desktop Azure.publish settings. You'll see that it's going to go ahead and it's going to find out all my information about my account. I've got a 3-month trial account. And I'll go over here to my website so that you can see my list of sites. And what I'll do over here is I'll say Azure Site List. It's actually going to go out and it's going to iterate over all the different sites that I have in my account. It's going to show me all those sites right here. Pretty nice. If I wanted to browse one of those sites directly from the command line, I could type Azure Site Browse, and we'll do Get Demo 01, hit enter, and it's actually going to open that up in a web browser. Say hello from Windows Azure Websites, just as we expected. On the flip side, if I'm tired of having that site sitting around, I can actually do an Azure Site Delete, Get Demo 01. Hit enter. It's going to confirm that. You sure you want to delete this site? Because if I delete it, it's gone. Everything's gone. I'm perfectly okay with that. So if I go over here to my browser and hit refresh, we should see that we only have 2 sites now, and one of them will definitely not be the Get Demo 01 site. So there we go. So if I can delete sites and I can list sites, can I create sites? Absolutely. What I'll do now is I'll actually create a directory here called Get Demo 02. And there it is, and I'll CD into it. Clear screen. And now what I'll do is I'll actually want to establish a new site, and I like the whole Git deployment concept, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go and instantiate a new site, provision a new site for myself, and I want to provide it an additional switch at the end, and that switch is --git, which I'll show you here in a second. But what that'll do is it'll actually create a local Git repository in the directory in which you run the command. That's why I actually made that separate folder CD'd into it. I'm going to run that command from within that folder, because that's when it'll actually create the Git repo in that folder that I expect to have it created in. So what I'll do here is I'll do Azure Site Create, and we'll say Get Demo 02. I'll type --git, hit enter here, and that'll again make a call back out to Microsoft Windows Azure Websites, create my site. It'll actually go ahead and run a git init in that particular folder to create a local repository for me. And if I do a dir in that folder, you'll see that I've already got a git ignore. It's awful friendly. Do a clear screen rule here, and go back to the portal and hit F5, and you'll see that I do indeed have a brand new git demo 02. And what I'll do is I'll click on that guy, and I'll go over here to the deployments. It should know that we've got a git demo, or excuse me, a git repo up here. It says that your git repo is ready. I figured that, which is good news for sure. And what I'll do is I'll cd into that folder real quick. Actually, I'm going to use Windows Explorer to go into that folder. Pardon me. I'm going to go into git demo 02 here. And just like before, I'm going to copy a file out of that earlier demo, specifically just a simple index file. Go ahead and take that guy and copy him in. And we know we're probably going to want to edit that error message. So I'm going to open that up using Sublime and close this one. And I'll just say hello world again. Again from Windows Azure websites. And we'll save that file real quickly. And now since I'm on the command prompt and I've got git installed so that I've got command prompt readiness, so I've got all my node tools here, and I've also got my git tools here as well. So what I can do is I'm sitting in this directory, so I'll just do a git add, git commit -m, initial revision, and then I'll do a git push Azure master. And that'll actually push it up to my Azure site. I could do a git push origin master there if I wanted, but you can use the word Azure. It'll push it right up to your Azure site. And there's our active deployment, just like before. If I click browse, oh, I don't have a file set up as my default page. Oh, maybe it's not actually going to load. Did I commit the file? Git demo 2. Huh, interesting. So I know I saved the file. I know it's in there. Hello. Oh, hello. That's what I did wrong. I did not actually hit the right page. Hello.html. There we go. Okay. Now, if you want to be able to do this stuff from the root, I just want to point out that you do have this configure tab in here. And one of the things that you can do in this configure tab is go down and add your own start file, and then you could elevate that all the way to the very top if you want to, so that hello is your default page. Pretty cool with that. So I'll go ahead and click save there. The reason we got that 403 forbidden was because I was trying to hit a site at the root without actually having a default page. If I refresh it, it's going to load our hello.html right there on the fly for us. So that's all good. So we've actually created a site from the command line, created a git repo from the command line. I guess just for safe measure, I'll go ahead and do a Azure site delete, and we'll just say git demo 2. Yes, I do want to delete it. What that's going to do is that's going to go out. It's going to delete our site again. I go and do an F5 to refresh that browser window. You'll see that we no longer have git demo 2 in there either. So that's definitely good news. Cool. Now the next demo that we're going to do is to talk about continuous integration using tfspreview.com.
So what we're going to do in this demo is we're going to build a real quick chat application using SignalR. You guys know I'm a big fan of SignalR, so no demo that I do would be complete without one. So let's go ahead and make a site, and we'll call it Chatter. We're just kind of picking on another more popular, already existing chat application written for SignalR, Jabber. We're just kind of making a play on words here. So we've got Chatter here set up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here in my dashboard and click Set up TFS Publishing. And I'll go ahead and provide my tfspreview.com preview URL. And this will throw me out to the tfspreview.com authentication screen. I'll go ahead and click Accept there. And this will now pull back the list of different TFS projects that I've got on tfspreview.com. So we'll go ahead and leave that with the one that I've already got. Click Next here. And it's going to link our website up to this TFS project. so that whenever I actually connect with Visual Studio, make any changes, check in code, if I have any unit tests, they'll get run during the build. Any special stuff that I need done during the build, I can have done in my tfspreview.com build process. And once that process completes, the website will be deployed to Windows Azure automatically. It's really handy as we've got these links here to browse or open with Visual Studio. What I'll do is I'll click this Visual Studio icon. I'll just say I'm fine with that. It's going to launch Visual Studio, and it's actually going to go ahead and connect to the TFS window for me. So I've already got all that already connected. So that's pretty cool. Go ahead and minimize this. And what I'll do here is I'll go to the Source Control Explorer, and you'll see that it's going to connect to that TFS trunk. I don't have anything out there, so I've got no files out there. So what I've got is a little website on my desktop right here called Chat App. Go ahead and open up that solution. That's your basic SignalR chat. Got a really basic hub. Send message, receive message. Got an HTML page. And in that HTML page, I've got some pretty simple GUI chat application. And what I want to do now is go over here and right click the solution and say add solution to source control. It's going to go and obviously connect my tfspreview.com source control repository. So there we go. So it's added chat app to that guy. So it's all in there. And now what I'll do is go ahead and right click this guy and say check in pending changes. Added solution to TFS repository. I'll do a check in here. It's actually going to go out to tfspreview.com, check in all those files, upload everything to the server. What I'll do is I'll go back in here and I'll take a look at my build screen. You'll see that I've got a build set up right now. Build's already in queue. So if I go back over here, I go to dashboard. Actually, I want to go to deployments. Kind of like what we did with the Git repository earlier. We could sit here until the build actually completes, which I'm going to refresh this and be a little impatient. We've got a build that's running. So right now there's a build running on the tfspreview.com continuous integration server. If I were to have any unit test projects, they would actually be run and executed as well. And provided the build succeeds, and we don't have any compilation errors, don't have any problems with the build, once the build completes, it'll actually deploy that website automatically to Windows Azure websites. So there we go. So we're already deploying. The site's being built and being deployed. It's cruising out. Give it just a second. Alright, so our deployment's completed. Go ahead and click over here and go to Browse. We'll open up our chat app in a new window. What I need to do is actually type in the URL. So we'll come out of full screen mode here. Go to default HTML. And it's going to open up a window here. Go ahead and open up another one so that you can actually see the two different browser windows here. What I'll do is I'll click send and should see messages going back and forth. So you can see that there's actually a chat going on, and we could log in with somebody else here, Gina. Gina would send a message. So see that chat is actually working, and that happened as soon as we did our commit. We committed files directly into the TFS repository. The build completed. Once that build completed, the website was actually pushed out to Windows Azure websites automatically. So there you have continuous integration with Windows Azure websites and TFS. You don't have to go through the process setting up your own build server. You can just use tfspreview.com. It gets pushed right out to the cloud. So that's really our last official demo, but what I want to point out is that there have been a couple of different questions that have come up, and one of those questions is, when do I want to differentiate between, or how do I differentiate rather between a website and a web role or a cloud service, and what would I want to use one over the other? Just take a look at this table here. If you want to do modern web apps or have pretty easy continuous integration, or use any of the popular open source apps such as WordPress or different CMSs out there, then websites are going to be your answer, because you can use PHP, Node, what have you. You have a very simple deployment process. It integrates with a bunch of different development frameworks. That's going to be your answer. In the case of a cloud service or web role, you would want to use that when you've got multi-tier applications. You've got situations where you've got a service or a work role that needs to run all the time, or when you've got things that need to talk to a virtual machine and you've got more complicated environmental setups. That's when you want to go with a cloud service or web role. Apps that require advanced administration, if you're going to need to do deeper level stuff or have elevated permissions, and then apps that require networking, such as virtual networking or again VMs. That's when you're going to want to use a cloud service or a web role over a website. So it's kind of the idea there. One other question that frequently comes up is around the difference between shared and reserved instance sites. So what I want to try to do now is to show you a quick snippet of slide decks that I believe Scott may have shown in his demo. But the idea here is this is what it looks like in our shared world. We have a lot of shared instances. You start off with one. You have a site hosted on one shared instance. You up your slider to 2, and now we're going to load balance your site directly across 2 different shared machines. So you're on one machine with other sites, with other tenants and other customers, running in similar to a modern, normal shared web hosting environment. So that's kind of the deal with a shared site. With a reserved site, we're going to take your site off the shared instance, and you're going to be on your own reserved instance, reserved all for you. If you wanted to scale that up, you could slide the slider up, and now you're going to have 2 reserved instances instead of 1. All your code just all on your machine. And if you decide that you need multiple sites, you want to take advantage of the 10 website offer, that's when you start adding sites, and all of your sites live on your machine. So each instance that you have, if you scale it out, is going to have copies of all your different sites, and they'll all be just on your reserved instance machine. So that's kind of the difference between shared and reserved. And then one of the main features with reserved instances is that you're going to be able to map domain names to it. That's something that a lot of people in the shared world have commented on. We have a couple different ways that you can work around that, in terms of you can set up a 302 redirect, or you could use DNSimple's URL record type. But again, that's not an actual domain mapping to your individual website. That's more of a redirection. So there are some tricks that you can perform if you're comfortable with the AzureWebsites.net domain name. But if you're not, you can go over to one of your sites and go to your scale tab, and then you would scroll down in your scaled. You would click on reserved, and it's going to tell you, you're going to no longer be in your spending limit, which is free, because we have a free account right now. So I'm not going to do that at this time, but just to show you what that would look like, what I'll do is I'll log into my own account. Log into my own account here. And the site that I actually use for my blog site is an Orchard CMS. And if I go into here and I take a look real quickly at my traffic, you'll see what's going on there. And if I were to look in the Scale tab, you'll see that this is a large machine. It's a reserved instance. And I've only got one instance. I've definitely got enough horsepower there. If I were to take a look at configure, scroll down here, you'll see this additional area right here, host names with site URLs. And this is the domain that I'm given out of the gate. And this is the domain that I set up whenever I actually set up my domain alias in my domain provider. So you'll see that's an additional area that you'll have if you were to go to a reserved instance, because in reserved instance mode you can actually map different domain names to your Windows Azure websites and no longer use some form of redirection or masking. So just want to point that out. So while we're talking about domains and domain names, it actually reminds me there's one thing that I wanted to do, and this is a good opportunity to do it so I can explain it to you guys. I actually want to create a new site for my wife. She's an artist and a graphic designer, and she's been using WordPress for a while. And I figure since Windows Azure Website supports WordPress, I think I was going to move her site over for her. But go ahead and create a domain for her. That's her website's domain name, swirlyg.com. So what I'll do is it'll load up real quick, and got that created. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on this guy. Before I complete this particular aspect of the task, I'm going to go out to my domain provider. I use dnsimple.com. So I'm going to go out to there and I'm going to click on Manage, and I'm going to do the Advanced Editor. And if you have a different provider, it probably look a little bit different. But so what I'm going to do in here is I'm actually going to create a CNAME, and that'll be www.swirlyg.com, and that will resolve to swirlyg.azurewebsites.net. I want to set the DTL to be 1 minute because we want that to go ahead and activate as quickly as possible since we're doing a demo. Don't want to waste any time here. So we've got swirlyg.com set up or ready to go, and I'll go over here to configure, and you'll see that I've got swirlyg.appsites.net, and I'll add www.swirlyg.com and click the check mark there and click save. And remember, this is in my reserved instance, but that's been updated, so I've got a website out there. And if I were to click browse, I'll go to let me come out of full screen mode here. I'll actually go to swirlyg.azurewebsites.net, and let me see if it's taken yet. Probably not. I go to swirlyg.com. It's already resolving. So you'll see that in just a second you can go into your domain editor, set up a CNAME, go into www, and then you point that over to your actual website that you've got set up. In this case, set up a swirlyg.com address, and I go into the host names area and I add the different domain that I'm going to do. You can't do this. You cannot do that. It's not allowed because that's a root. So you've got to use a CNAME, but it's probably okay. Most sites are going to resolve to www anyway, so it's kind of the plan. But you can see that in a couple of seconds that actually took effect, and domain's already ready to go. So pretty quick. So that's how my particular provider works. So yours might be different, but that's sort of the idea. Once you go into reserve mode, you'll have the ability to do that, to set up host names in that manner. I know that we've had a lot of customers asking for ability to do that in a shared instance as well. At this time, I don't know what the roadmap is on shared instance mode for custom domain names, but I know that it's probably, we've definitely heard the message. So, that's the DNS demo real quick that I just sort of came up with on the fly. And there's one other demo that I wouldn't mind showing you. What I'll do is I'll go back to the portal and log in as the demo account that I've been using. And what I'm going to do here quickly is I'm going to create a new website. It's just one last demo, the different kind of functionality that exists in the portal. And that's all wired up with Windows Azure website. So I'm actually going to create a new site, and we're going to call it configuration demo. Hopefully that'll get, yep. So we'll create that site. And once the site's created, I'm going to download the publish profile, because I'm going to create one more Visual Studio project real quick, just to kind of show you something here. So I'll download the publish profile, and we'll save that. I got that in my downloads folder. Now I'm going to open up Visual Studio. There we go. I'm going to create one more web application. I'll actually do a web forms application for this one, and we'll call this site configuration demo. Click OK. So it'll get created, and what I'm going to do up here is take out this particular area of code and replace it with a label. And we'll just call it label, if I can get the right keystroke in there. And run at server tag. Okay, and we'll close it. And what I'll do here is go over, hit build by accident. Not ready to build that yet. So what I'm going to do is go in the code behind, and I'll just say label message.text is equal to configuration manager .app settings message. Go ahead and copy that out and open up the web config here and add a app settings section. Okay. Value hello world. Okay, and we'll go ahead and run that away just to make sure it's all wired up. Yep, and there we go. Home page, hello world. There's our message. That's all well and good. Now I'll right click here and I'll select publish. I want to import that publish profile, which is right there. Go ahead and click publish. I'm pretty sure it's going to work. And that'll get published out to Windows Azure websites for us. And our browser window will be thrown open so that we can take a look at our creation. And you'll see that it's working. So we're actually reading from the web config file, reading the configuration information. So what I'll do is I'll go into my configuration app here. I want to go over to configure. And this is something that I don't see demoed a lot, and I think it's a really nice idea. I'm going to go into app settings. I'm going to type message and I'll say hello from Windows Azure websites. And click OK here. And I'll go ahead and save this guy. And what I'll do here is I'll go back to dashboard and just want to point something out real quick. Open up FileZilla. There we go. And it's scooted over here. So I'll maximize that real quick. And I'm going to get rid of my windows. And what I'll do is I'll scroll down here and copy this FTP host name. Paste it into there. Copy my deployment user. Paste it into there. Enter my password. Okay. I'm going to download the web config file real quick. I want to show you one more time. In the configure tab, I've got this app settings set, hello from Windows Azure websites. I go into the site here, www.root, scroll down, download the web config, and go ahead and get to my desktop. So I'm going to take a look at that file. So open it up in Sublime, and you'll see that that value is still the same as it was when I uploaded the file. It's still what it was when I actually created the file in Visual Studio. However, I've made the change here and saved it back. So I go to the page and I refresh it. The message that you're going to see is the message that's been entered in right here. And that's because what the team has done is they've actually added a layer of configuration magic on top of the traditional configuration plumbing, so that you can go out to the portal and make whatever configuration change you need to make, and that'll actually leave your files alone. It'll just override everything that's in the app settings. So if you were to add some other value there that corresponds to some other web config app setting value, you could make changes to them on the fly directly from the portal. That's so you don't actually have to download the file, make a change to it, upload it, test it out, see if it works. You can just do it all directly from the portal, and it'll just sort of override everything in that file. So that's good. If you leave it out of this section, if you don't add your individual web config setting here, it'll still work. It'll just use whatever's in your web config instead. So that's kind of how the different app settings configuration panel works in the portal, and that's pretty much it. So that's the end of my demos. I hope you guys have enjoyed it today. I have, and definitely want to thank the guys at ASPConf for having me come out. They've really done a good job and putting this together and organizing everything, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. And just so you have it one more time, I'll go into my thing here and go to the end of my deck and run it. And there's me. I'm Brady Gaster. There's my Twitter handle. There's my email address if you want to shoot me an email. And there's my domain name if you want to keep up with my blogging activity. Thanks a lot for coming out, for giving me your time today. Have a good one.